Hey guys, how's it going? It's Andy from Magoo Investing. Welcome back. After a long weekend where I spent a majority of my time sitting in front of my computer writing a 15-page paper on whale migration and a 10-page paper on the invasive lionfish in South Florida, I have now finished all of my responsibilities for last week, and now I can focus on making YouTube videos again. So in today's episode of Robin Hood Top Stocks, I'm going to be talking about the only weed stock that I'd ever considered taking a position in. And I'm not including that one time I day traded Tilray and made a decent amount of money, but I'm talking about a long-term position. And in my Aurora Cannabis video, and if you missed that, I'll put that up here, I mentioned that I don't have a lot of faith in weed stocks overall, but I did put the caveat that I have considered taking a position in one stock, in weed, and this is that video. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about the weed ETF, ticker symbol MJ. Before we get started, I gotta say that I'm not a licensed financial advisor, and I'd highly recommend talking to a professional, someone that can find you the best places to put your money going forward. In addition, I really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button, as it would help my channel out a lot. In that Aurora Cannabis video, I talked about a lot of the problems that are affecting weed stocks, and there's a lot of them. And there's not a lot of optimism in the sector right now. And so in today's video, I'm going to be explaining why, if anyone wanted to get involved in weed stocks, why I'd highly recommend taking a look at this ETF instead of picking an individual stock. In a lot of other videos, I've talked about, if you're not super confident in industry, to pick the most successful or the largest company. However, weed stocks are kind of the one example where I'd go away from that idea. And if you look at pretty much any of these weed stocks, so far I've talked about two of the larger ones, in Tilray and Aurora Cannabis, and a lot of the problems that are affecting these two companies are affecting all of the other companies in this sector. When you look at all these weed stocks, they have very similar characteristics, and the fact that they can't produce profit on a quarterly basis, they have extremely high levels of long-term debt, and the fact that they've had horrible years for 2019. Since I talked about Aurora Cannabis, I gave the kind of warning that if the stock falls below $1, it has the potential of getting delisted from the New York Stock Exchange. And after I posted that video, the stock has recovered a decent amount, and now it's sitting above that $1 threshold. So it's kind of safe for that. But today we're going to be talking about MJ, which is the weed ETF that is currently sitting at around $17. And today I'm going to kind of give my explanation why I think people should look at that over picking one individual stock. MJ is a stock that I've held in the past, however, I no longer have this position. It is currently pretty much flat on the year. And you might be wondering, why would you take a position in a stock that's flat? And mainly the reason is it reduces the amount of risk that you're exposing yourself to. And so when you're taking a position in one company, especially in a sector like weed stocks, you're putting yourself at a lot of risk. And people can have varying opinions on the future of weed stocks, but the fact is, weed stocks have a very high average daily range. And what that means is, on an average day, the weed sector has a very wide range that it trades in. So stock could be up 5% one day, could be down 5% the next day. Tech is very volatile in that aspect as well, but for these larger, well-established companies, it's pretty rare to see a 5% move. But when you look at weed stocks, pretty much any news event that comes out is going to push a stock at least 3 or 4%. So MJ, the reason that I think it is a better option is that it still gives you that exposure to the weed stocks. However, it has a bunch of different holdings that kind of limits the overall risk. And when I put up the 10 largest positions that MJ holds, you'll see that most of them are weed stocks. However, when I did some research, currently the portfolio is around 70% weed stock, and the rest of it is made up by tobacco companies, biotech, and the largest position is actually a fertilizer company. And 70% weed stock still gives you plenty of exposure to this sector. However, it limits the downside risk. If one stock, say Aurora Cannabis, has news come out that the market doesn't like and it pushes it down 10%, you're not going to be down 10%. While Aurora Cannabis is a decently large position in MJ, it's not going to pull you down all the way. You have a bunch of these other stocks that are probably not doing as poorly that day to kind of average it out. This is a great example of something that I've learned recently, is the importance of having a variety of positions in your portfolio. In the past, I guess since last summer, I had a tendency of only holding one or two companies at one time because I'd find the stock that I liked the most, and in my mind, if I liked it the most, I might as well put all of my money into it because I have a lot of faith in it. And so when things went well, things went great for me. If a stock that I was holding goes up 5%, my portfolio overall is up 5%, which is incredible. However, I picked some poor stocks after a couple weeks, and when the stock would fall 5%, so would my portfolio. And so now I'm sitting at the point where I think I have 6 or 7 positions at one time, and it kind of limits the daily movement of my portfolio. And so if I'm picking good stocks, my portfolio will still go up. However, if things go poorly or if the market falls overall, which is kind of something that has been happening recently, I'm kind of limiting my downside risk, because if I have a super volatile stock that's paired with a bunch of not volatile stocks, it averages it out. And MJ is a great example of the importance of doing that. All weed stocks have had a pretty rough 2019. And so for people that are bullish on weed stocks overall, I think it's beneficial to take a position in MJ over an individual company. A lot of these companies are sitting in tough spots. And if you're bullish overall, I think it'd be beneficial to kind of put a bunch of money into all these different companies. And MJ is a great way to do that. In addition, I think it's really attractive the fact that MJ gives a dividend. And this was something that I found out by accident. This was the first time I actually got a dividend. I was owning MJ, I think it was last winter. And I just woke up one day and it had given me a dividend. I didn't even realize that they would give out a dividend because it was a weed stock. And so now that looking at it, it protects you from the overall daily movement. And if you reinvest that dividend back into MJ, it gives you the opportunity to lower your average cost, assuming that the stock does fall. So like I talked about in my Tilray and my Aurora Cannabis video, there's a lot of problems that are affecting legal weed stocks at this point. One of the main ones is the fact that the United States still considers it a Schedule I drug, meaning that it's illegal at the federal level. And what that means is these companies, mainly most of them are Canadian companies at this point that are traded on the stock exchange, they do not have the ability to start trading in the United States. And there are some states that weed is legal. The one I'm currently living in Oregon, and Oregon weed is legal. However, they don't have the ability to have a lot of the benefits of being backed by a large bank. And since weed is illegal at the federal level, these banks aren't able to give out loans or just give the overall support to these dispensaries. And so a lot of these dispensaries are kind of on their own. You'll notice that if you go into any dispensary, you have to pay with cash. And the reason behind that is these credit card companies aren't allowing these transactions to happen at dispensaries because it's illegal at a federal level. In addition, Canada, which has legalized weed overall, has been very slow at implementing the changes necessary to make this industry succeed. At this point, I gave this example in the past two videos I made, but I thought I'd throw it in here as well. And so when we're talking about Ontario, which has 14 million people living in that region, they only have 25 dispensaries total. And the small college town in Oregon that I'm living in has 50,000 people with 12 dispensaries. So you can see the discrepancy in the amount of dispensaries per how many people live there. And so it appears that the Canadian government has been very slow at allowing these businesses to set up shop in places, and it's really hurting this legal weed business. And as you can see, it really shows in the fundamentals when you look at these companies. All of them are burning through cash. They have an incredible amount of long-term debt, and they're kind of looking pretty rough. A price forecast that I saw for Aurora Cannabis had it at $0, which means that they don't think it's going to survive. And it's very possible. And so if you're bullish overall on legal weed, you can take the very risky approach at picking one of the companies that you think will succeed, or what I think may be the better opportunity is to invest into MJ, because it limits your risk. If one of these companies go out of business, you're not going to be losing all your money. You're definitely going to lose some money because it's a portion of the overall portfolio for MJ, but it's not the whole portfolio. Overall, I think there's a lot of potential with weed stocks. However, I don't think now is the time to get into this sector. For people that are really excited by the opportunity to trade in these stocks, I'd say go for it. But that's kind of the reason why I brought MJ onto my channel today, to talk about, I think there are safer ways to get exposure to the legal weed stocks. And instead of just picking one stock that could go to zero, I think it's a better idea to spread out your investment over a bunch of different weed stocks. That gives you the benefit if the stocks increase in price, but it also limits the downside risk. I think even if the United States legalizes weed at a federal level, which I think is still years away, based off of what we've seen in Canada and how slow they've been at enacting laws and regulations to help these companies, I think the benefit of investing in legal weed is still years away. So let me know what you think about legal weed overall. Do you think it's a good investment right now? Do you think it's a good idea to invest in an ETF that kind of limits your risk? Or do you think that picking the leader in weed stocks is a better overall strategy? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if there is a video or just a stock you'd like me to go over in a future episode, please leave it in the comment section down below and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Thanks for watching this episode of Robinhood Top Stocks, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.